Good morning. I'm Sue Spargo, and welcome to our fourth Stitch Along. This really is a celebration of 20 years of being in business, and it's been an amazing ride. I am supported by three of my children, as well as an amazing staff that we have. And I'll just tell you a little bit about how we grew. We started the business in my basement. Uh, for 10 years we ran it out of our basement, and then we moved into a business building, and we've had four different times we've expanded and changed over the years. Here in Ohio, we have our warehouse as well as our dye studio where we dye all our own wools. We now have a retail store, which is just beautiful, kept up really nice by our store manager and with wonderful, exciting products. So we have all sorts of gift items as well as beautiful fabrics and wools. And our main goal in our business is to support women in business and also nonprofits. So we have a lot of products that we have supporting the things we feel very passionate about. The other really passionate thing for me has been all the teaching and traveling I've done over the years. And I have learned so much from my students and have I really taught myself my embroidery journey, which has been probably over about the last 15 years. So this is to give back to you some of the things that I have learned and had a lot of fun with. Found it very meditative in times of stress, and so I hope that you are going to enjoy joining me and making our blooms flourish, I guess, throughout this next 21 days. So make sure that you sign up for our newsletter. That is on suspargo.com. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to find our videos on Instagram, stitch videos. We have many stitch videos there, a little bit about getting started with your needles, and how to use your creative stitching book. So you need to go to my page, Sue Spargo, and by doing that you just use the search button if you need that. Once you get to the page, you will see these three little boxes just below these little circles. You're going to press on the center one right here, and you'll see this little word on the left called Series. Press that, and you'll see embroidery tutorials. And when you press that, you will see all the embroidery tutorials we have here on Instagram. And so these are what you're going to refer to in order to do the stitches if you're not familiar with them. So don't forget to follow us on Instagram to be able to get the updates of when we are going to be posting each day. So something else that'll be very helpful for you is if you go to our website, you will find many tutorials. So if you go here, go to tutorials, whoops, there we go. These are all the tutorials we've done, and there's about 70 of them of all sorts of techniques, information. They are amazing the amount of work have been put into each one of these, and very full of great information. What I'd like you to do is, if you're not familiar with the needles, is to go down and find the one about needles, which is, you can see how many beautiful ones we have in here. It is coming up. Let's find it right here. So here it is. It's called Know Your Needles. And this is the one. If you go into this one, you will be able to read through all the information about needles and a little bit about eleganza, about the creative stitching book. And this will help you get started, especially if you're new to stitching or doing any of our work. So that's a great tutorial. So I'm thinking it would be good to read that and sort of have a feeling of where we're going to go with the needles for all the stitches. So have fun with that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about needles in a minute. All right, so getting ready for our stitch along, I'm just going to talk through some things that may be very useful for you. First of all, my creative stitching book. This is the second edition. This is where all the stitches will be in a written form, like I said, along with the videos on Instagram. If you turn to page 10, you will see that there is a lot of information about needles, and needles are a very important part of embroidery. First of all, it's the size of the needle, depends on the size of the thread you're using, and we will be using all three weights of thread, like an 8, a 5, and a 3. And also the needles will depend which one you use depending on the type of stitch you're doing. So if you're doing just embroideries, regular embroidery stitches, we'll use mainly chenille needles, and if you're doing wrap stitches, for instance, things that where you're wrapping like a bullion knot, or we casting on half hitches, you will use milliner's needles. So a very clever system that we have is our color coding system that goes along with our eleganza threads. So our eleganza comes in an 8, a 5, and a 3, and you'll notice that the 8 has a green core, and the purple is a 5, and the turquoise center is a number 3. So we have a clever system with our needles that we have color-coded our needles. So you can see these milliner's needles here have labels that match the centers of these cores, which means that the 3 milliner's needle you would use with a size 8, the 1 milliner's with a size 5, and the 15 with a size 3. The same goes for our chenille and tapestry needles, except with those we have just 2 of each. So chenille needles are what I'm going to use for basic embroidery needles. They have a nice size eye to be able to use, and you can see the green one is a 24. And then the number 18 has a label that is purple and turquoise, so it means you can use it for both of these sizes. So chenille needles have nice points, and we will do basic stitches like fly stitch, back stitch, running stitches with a chenille needle. If we want to weave through any existing stitches, we will use tapestry needles. So the difference between a chenille and a tapestry is a tapestry has a blunt point, so it doesn't interfere with stitching. You know, if you stitch through something with a point, you can go through the fibers, and you could have quite a mess, especially if you wanted to undo something. So the tapestry has a nice blunt point. These are good for weaving, either weaving like a threaded back stitch or a trellis stitch. And so we have 24 that goes with a size 8, and we do a 20, which has a 2-color label for the 5 and the 3. So mainly we'll be using milliner's, tapestries, and chenille needles. So we sell these individually. They're nicely color-coded, like I said, and we also have a pack of all of our needles that are our branded needles. Another very interesting thing is that each one of these needles on page 10, which you can read about this, you can also refer to our tutorial on our website about needles, but each of these are true to size. So if you're stitching with one and you go, gosh, I can't remember what that is, this is a good reference to be able to come back and put the needle against these, and you will then remember which needle it is. Eventually you will learn which needle to use for what, but initially it takes a little bit of a learning curve. But again, we have labels that we use in needle cases, so that's another good reference. I often tell my students as well, if you make a needle case around the actual label, which is like these, that you put on your needle case, you could do a back stitch or a French knot or a little button that refers to the color. So again, it's all color coded, so you'll eventually become familiar with which needle to use with what size thread and also with what type of stitch.